information was shared with our partners, and then we went from there.
The next question is from Evan Perez from CNN. Please go ahead.
Wondering if you could tell us perhaps if you found any indication so far to indicate that there was this level of planning and coordination for these people to go into the Capitol and carry out this attack rather than just a spontaneous mob that got out of control. And then secondly, if you could, at least Senator Schumer has talked about the possibility that some people might be put on the no-fly list. Of these 170 case subject files that you've already opened, can you tell us whether you've added any of those people to a no-fly list as a result of what happened?
So we're looking at all different avenues here.
I'd like to weigh in on that.
My agents and analysts and all the other FBI personnel.
I'd like to weigh in on that. A man that I just got through having a conversation with about a month ago, because me and Mr. Pat Burns have developed somewhat of a relationship towards talking to one another on the phone. And I know what he's doing. He's still feeling me out. He's still trying to analyze me after about 10 years since the occurrence took place in my life, because at the time he was working for the United States Marshal. And me and him basically got into somewhat of a debate or an argument about how that my life is still being affected by all this that he's in denial of. Oh, they ain't watching you, Dennis. They're not looking at you. They're not doing this to you. They're not doing that to you. And I go, I'll tell you what, Mr. Burns, if I was to go to the post office and get a visa to leave the country, I guarantee you if I was to go to an international airport, which is less than 120 miles away, Memphis, Tennessee, as soon as I walked in there, going to leave this country and go no matter where. I could be going on a holy trip with a church group over to Israel just to be a spectator and looking at the holy sites, and I guarantee you I would be thrown down, analyzed, questioned, and more than likely denied access towards ever getting on the plane. So whenever they talk about how in control that they are, trust me, they are in control of people's lives. And the thing about it is, I never threatened a president. I never threatened to do bodily harm to anybody. I've never made any type of gestures towards going to blow up a dam. I've never made any gestures towards going to kill or hurt anybody. They are judging me off of the teachings that I'm teaching out of the book of Revelations. That's the reason why they're punishing me. Once more, they're beating a horse on the wrong end. I'm just the messenger. I'm not the guy that created and designed and manufactured and wrote and edited and produced the book of Revelations. All I'm doing is trying to get the message out. Boy, has the demons, has the paranormal influences here in America tried to stop that, on the degree of seeing that much more suffering in places like Africa, India, all the other countries, that is South America, Mexico, all them other countries that could have done already had a major revival, a major movement, that these people, not just the ones that didn't support the windmill ministries, but the ones that attacked either directly or indirectly on trying to stop the windmill ministries, I promise you will give an account one day in the great white throne judgment before God releases them. I don't have to say where, but I'm going to mention the word hell. Hell is in fact a real thing in the Bible. That will be the true justice.
My office and across the country are scrubbing video. We're talking to witnesses. We're talking to individuals that we arrest, and we're gathering that.
Cases are getting cold. Come on. Come on. Yeah, you're doing a dragnet. But still, once more, are you really going after the people that agitated it?
Picture that intelligence, if you will,
And
to
I'm sure there's a lot of them that's going to be caught up in this because they was at the wrong place at the wrong time, even though they got misinformation, even though they was entrapped by the United States government, even though they was lured. And entrapment, which is in most states are illegal for entrapments, even though they was lured in doing this by their own government, I'm sure there'll be many a people that will suffer the consequences on not only not being able to get on an airplane, but they will be punished severely to the point of their whole lives will be changed on account of them being at the wrong place at the wrong time, even if they had absolutely no contact whatsoever with any type of formal known gang group or whatever. In other words, they was just at the wrong place at the wrong time, and because your picture come up and now we can identify you, we're coming and knocking on your door.
understand what happened on the 6th, that day, in the Capitol, outside the Capitol. We're talking to all law enforcement partners, and it's not just the FBI doing this, it's all of our law enforcement partners as well that are working in conjunction with Acting U.S. Attorney Mike Sherman's office and our local office here too as well. So we're sharing that intelligence amongst each other. We're putting into the intelligence cycle that the FBI has to try to ascertain the true picture of what happened that day. As for the no-fly list, we look at all tools and techniques that we possibly can use within the FBI, and that's something that we are actively looking at.
The next question is from Catherine Herridge from CBS News. Please go ahead.
Thank you for holding this event. The 2 pipe bombs that were found at the RNC and the DNC, does this cross the threshold to domestic terrorism because they are political targets? And do you think this was designed to either pull first responders away from the scene as the Capitol was breached, or an effort to maim lawmakers as they evacuated?
So I'll try to address that question for you the best I can. So yes, those 2 pipe bombs that were found both outside the RNC and the DNC offices near the Capitol grounds. And look, to begin, they were real devices.
And there's thinking that it may have been a diversion.
They had explosive igniters. They had timers. We don't know, obviously, exactly why they did not go off. That's being investigated. They were destroyed, disabled by Capitol Police with the assistance of the ATF, and that is all obviously being vetted and investigated. What was the purpose of those devices being planted? Was it a diversionary type of a tactic used by some of these rioters? Was it something, or did it have some other type of nefarious purpose? So that is what the ATF, the FBI, MPD are looking at as we speak right now, and looking for those persons that planted those devices. In terms of the conduct related to planning those, pipe bombs, the mention of domestic terrorism, I've mentioned this before. I don't like this tyranny of labels saying an act is domestic terrorism. We have plenty of federal resources at our disposal, plenty of federal charges to address all of this conduct, from felony murder related to the possession and use of destructive devices to seditious conspiracy, under the federal code that has significant penalties. And as mentioned, with this strike force that was established to focus strictly on sedition charges, we're looking at and treating this just like a significant international counterterrorism or counterintelligence operation. We're looking at everything: money, travel records, looking at disposition, movement, communication records. So no resource related to the FBI or the U.S. Attorney's Office will be unchecked in terms of trying to determine exactly if there was a command and control, how it operated, and how they executed these activities.
Whoa. How they executed these activities was open. It wasn't, once more, just on social media. Whenever you have the chief and commander that uses mainstream media to get his message out there, now you're feeding into the frenzy. I think I've heard enough. I think I've seen enough for today. You know, it took Washington, D.C., the White House, about 4 extra days before they finally dropped the American flag to half-staff in regards towards the 2 police officers that are now noted of fatality injuries in regards to this. One of them got hit in the head with a fire extinguisher, and another one took his life. Before it's over with, there ain't no telling how many more would do similar towards defeats to themselves or whatever, because they won't be able to live with themselves in the mirror towards how that they have failed the American people. They have failed the system in regards towards democracy. And I'm pretty sure that any senators or congressmen, any uppity ups, they won't have no trouble at all with living with themselves, kind of like Donald Trump. He won't have no trouble at all living with themselves because they don't have no conscience. And you can't expect for people like this to have conscience, because it's just like the Bible said, in the last days their minds will be seared with a hot iron towards not having no guilt and no condemnation about what has occurred here towards who dropped their end of the load, or who actually was part that fumigated this. I'm sure that they won't have no problem at all. You know why? Because their consciousness has been seared. And it's either been seared by money or corruption or drugs or something. Their consciousness has been seared. So I'm sure the uppity ups and some of the meanest of the mean, the cruelest of the cruel, they won't have no problem at all towards being able to sleep at night. But then there'll be others that will. But my question remains, in which, like I said, I'm fixing to turn this off before I get too upset and before my blood pressure winds up rising. But we have seen the government bamboozle the American people again and again and again. And if it's not over some smaller incident, it's over a big incident. You know, the deal with Ruby Ridge, that was a small incident. But the United States government had to pay for that. The United States government had to pay for that. To this day, there's still people walking around that have never been placed with any charges pertaining to the Mount Carmel, Waco, 51-day incident that have not come to justice over what went on and how it went on in Waco that led to the destruction of those that perished in the Oklahoma bombing. To this day, there are still individuals at large that has not paid for that type of activity. And to this day, there's still not individuals that should have been on their toes in not allowing the 9/11 to occur. To this day. And I don't know why that we're a people that can't hold its officials accountable. But in some of these other little countries, if something like this was to have occurred, automatically they start at the head of the snake. They don't start in the middle of the snake. They don't start at the tail of the snake. They start at the head of the snake. Whoever the head of the snake was, that's the part that they cut off. Now, the way that most of these little countries do, they actually assassinate their leaders. But because our leaders get a get out of jail free ticket and they don't have to be accountable, you have created a system to where nobody gets punished, and basically the people that should be punished gets rewarded for bad behavior. Just like some of them people down there in Waco, after it was all said and done with, wound up getting higher positions. They wound up making more money. They wound up drawing a bigger check from retirement from the government. And that's the way it usually works. They usually reward one another for their bad behavior. That works just the opposite, counter to that in all these other countries. How come we can't be like all these other countries in holding these people accountable? Especially beginning at the head and not at the tail. You know, they can sit here and talk about the little fish all they want. We seen the videos. Everybody did, or most everybody did. Before it's over with, I'm pretty sure there'll be there'll probably be a couple billion people that will watch this worldwide, all over. So these are things that are not just going to have to be addressed pertaining to the Americans, but these are things that's going to have to be addressed with world leaders all over the world. That's going to look at this with raised eyebrows. It's going to say, what the hell is really happening with the people over in America? $28 trillion in debt? No health care insurance for a lot of people that need it? Spitting on their veterans during the Vietnam War? What the hell is going on? That's what they'll be scratching their head about, which will make them that much more leery towards not wanting to have anything to do with us, regardless whether it's selling us a TV or gathering up a bushel basket of beans and buying it from us. It's going to make international relations that much harder pertaining to what has went on. Because to have something like this to happen from the inside out, oh my God, it's worse than terrorism. This is worse than any terrorist attack. This is worse than Pearl Harbor. You got to look at the big picture. Thanks again for listening. Good luck to all of us. Once more from the Windmill Ministries here at 291 Thompson Road, Sharon, Tennessee, zip code 38255. We want to thank our viewers and thank you for allowing for us to be a part of your lives in last day biblical Bible prophecy. Shalom. And God bless America. And God bless those who are seeking a righteous, godly, holy life. Shalom.